introduce this topic. We've been going into the archives at IARPI Collaborations for each of the domains of research that IARPI covers. And this is the survey, if you will, for the social sciences. And in looking at the two main collaboration teams, there's the health and well-being and the coastal resilience. This is the, these two presenters, I believe, are fairly representative of the data activities going on there. In particular, the coastal resilience has a performance element that speaks to, I'm trying to find my mouse, but I don't have it. Getting sidetracked here. Performance element 1.1, and that has to do with the collaboration with ANTHC, which is our first presentation for the LEO network. And the second presentation actually brings in focus from environmental intelligence. So that's kind of, it is social science in some ways, but that wasn't the purpose of selecting Jill Prewitt to come and present to us. Mostly, if you have participated or listened into the health and well-being team for the past year or two, they're really interested in what's going on in the Bering Sea. So where AOOS is investing in this and has funding to do so, I thought it'd be appropriate to give them this platform to come present their work. And if you guys haven't seen it yet. So that's our sequence. First, the LEO network, then Jill Prewitt will present on AOOS portal. And I don't think we'll have much time at the end, but I do want to reserve about 5 minutes for Bill Fitzhugh, who wants to talk about an idea for a Arctic digital library. So, you know, without further ado, Mike Brubaker, please. Thank you for coming to present to us.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. And it was so nice that we had the roll call today and seeing a lot of familiar faces and actually quite a few names that I was hoping to see faces with, and now I have. So just by way of introduction, I work at the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium in Anchorage, Alaska, and we are the statewide arm of the tribal health system, which means we provide a wide variety of services to tribes and tribal organizations across Alaska, including operation or cooperation with the regional organization, the Alaska Native Medical Center. And also we provide a variety of community health services and design, construct, engineering as well for water systems and other important health facilities and communities around Alaska. And, you know, LEO Network was born from the tribal health system, and we've taken a lot of notes from the medical profession, as well as from environmental health and community health and public health. So when you're looking at the maps I'm going to show you today, when you're looking at the short infomercial cartoon I'm going to show you, and some of the content that we put on the platform, I'd like you to think about it through the lens of public health. And what we're trying to accomplish, I think, in Alaska and now spreading out to other places around the Arctic and around the world, is a way to try to better understand health at a community level. So the way I like to think about this is going back 10 years, we started to hear more and more observations by local residents about environmental change. Unusual species, changes in the landscape, novel weather events, changes in the seasonality. And we realized that we needed to develop some kind of a regular conversation where we could both be learning from communities about what they are experiencing and observing. And we could also learn about the effects and the implications of that, not just what's happening, but so what. And we also wanted to find a way where we could connect people that probably would never otherwise meet with topical experts around Alaska, around the world, who are interested in these subjects and would be willing to engage in a conversation with local residents, and hopefully would be able together to come up with some effective strategies, share knowledge, find ways to adapt in healthy ways to the changes that were being experienced. And on top of that, hopefully we would be able, by making this information available in a public platform, we would have a way to look for trends when there were common types of events occurring, not just at the community level, but across larger regions. So that's what we set out to do by at first using what we had available to us, which was free applications on the internet, like Google Maps, by using ways to capture photos and put them onto websites, by using social media. And then eventually, with help from different funding agencies, we were able to put together a more sophisticated platform. But kind of going back to the health part of this, you know, if you look at any child in Alaska, any child anywhere, as soon as they start to go and see their provider, they're going to have a chart which tracks their health throughout their life, regardless of who the provider is. We all have those. And when you go and see a provider, when you go to see your doctor, he's going to ask you how you are. And you're the expert on your own physical health. And you'll let your provider know, he or she know, if you have something, if your shoulder's bothering you, if a bad elbow or something else is happening. That they're trained to look for symptoms. What we're trying to do in some ways is to create a chart at the community level. And we're trying to use events that are happening, which are signals of change, as ways to gather symptoms so we can better understand on a community level the vulnerabilities, the kinds of changes that are happening, and hopefully how that affects the overall health of the community and the environment. So when you look at LEO, what you're not getting, this is the most current research paper, or this is the most current forecast. What you get in LEO is purely events that have already occurred, that are time and location specific. So we are gathering symptoms of what is currently happening. And we leave it to others to gather those and do the analysis, the research, the roll-up, and things like that. So I'm going to do a share screen here. I'm going to show you the main platform. And then I'm going to show you a short video. And then I thought I would take a couple of minutes and we could look at the way that information flows into the system from the members. Okay, so if you go on to, if you Google leonetwork.org, LEO stands for Local Environmental Observer Network. And you're gonna see this search window, which we try to make it pretty simple, but this is gonna have a roll-up of current or more recent first-person observations that were provided by members, as well as let's see if I can go into it this way, as well as the news articles that we've gathered. And these news articles are sometimes submitted by members. A lot of them are submitted also by our team, who is scanning every day for, especially around the circumpolar north, for events that are occurring in news articles which are signals of change. And to do that, we have to look for certain keywords in the articles, which quite often point to its unusualness, extremeness, recordness, things like that. And then you can use the search engine here to go ahead and drill into it and look at different topics. You can look at date ranges. You can filter it by region. So for example, if we wanted to look just at Alaska or parts of Alaska, we'll just go into Alaska here. Or if you don't want to limit it by geography, you're going to get kind of a heat map like this, which shows where most of the observations are coming from, as well as more recent observations and articles. We call the cumulative of these posts in the Leo network. And you can have posts that are coming from a news source. These are the gray dots. Or you can have a post that's coming from a first-person observer, members of the platform, and those are in blue. And you can also filter out, I just want to see the observations. So like this. We also have it, it's very Arctic oriented. So, I mean, you can search by just looking at the Arctic. But once you've completed your search, let's just look here for permafrost related posts. You can go ahead and you can view this in a number of different ways. So this is how most people use the platform. They are sorting it, following it to try to see what's happening around Alaska based on their topics of interest. And if they're really interested in something like permafrost, for example, you could go ahead and you can, in your own settings over here, this is where my settings are, up in the upper right, you can go and follow a topic, and then you'll get an email update whenever some new article goes into the system. But you can look at this as a list, as a map. You can get kind of a thumbnail of the images to see sort of topically what are, what's going on here in that search category. You can throw it into a slideshow if you want to present this to a group like the group we have today. If we're just talking about permafrost in Alaska, that's probably what I would do. You can look at it as a timeline. And you can also look at it for stats. So this is 87 permafrost related posts, and you can see how topically the reader or the observer categorized these, and see sort of the, and here's also seasonal time information. So we follow this closely. We do a roll up everywhere, for example, just for Alaska, and we'll look and see what was the top categories that occurred during 2020. And, in some years or some seasons, it's quite interesting to see, whether you're seeing a lot of posts about drought, whether you're seeing a lot of posts about changes in snow conditions, or death, die-off, decline of wildlife, and then what types of animal categories might be covered under that, or plant categories. So that's kind of how you can go through and graze through the information over here. This is all in the search functions. If you want to add something into the system, you go in here, you can either post your own observation, and I'll show you how those come in a minute, or you can post a news article. And we're soon going to have also, contribute something from social media. That's another area we're developing currently. As far as members, this is the member platform. You can mouse over and see who these people are. You can also search by name or even by region. And it'll give you a list of the people that are members from different places or by name. This is all of our members. And if you want to look by communities, there's actually a map that shows this is where our members are located. And you can drill in here and actually see who they are. So there's 5 members in Nuuk. Now, what you're seeing right now is maybe our first view of this idea that the platform is made up of people fundamentally, but people who live in communities. And everything that is posted by someone in that community will roll up into that community page. So this is really sort of the community chart. And when we look at this, we have some sort of key data sources that we like to use. It depends on the region. There's more of these in Alaska than there are here, but this links right into that location. It's not just the general website. It takes you right to that community site. So it's a shortcut. You have information about the members. You have observations that were posted. And you can drill in and look at some of the filtering information as well. So I think we're at about 5,000 members now in the system overall. Now I promised you guys a short cartoon here to start off. At least it's morning in Alaska. So this is our Thursday morning cartoon. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that quickly. It gives a nice overview of how the system, how the whole platform is envisioned and how we present it to our membership. And I'm going to unplug my headphones here for a second, so hopefully you can hear.
Our world is changing very quickly, with many people witnessing extreme weather and unusual environmental events. The LEO network allows you to make observations about significant events where you live. Use the LEO Reporter app to easily prepare and send your observations from the field. The network includes topic experts in local and indigenous knowledge, as well as scientists. Observations are compared to identify emerging trends and posted to web-based maps. Do you have a story about an unusual environmental event? You can share your knowledge and help us to understand our changing world.
You guys able to hear that okay? Yeah, great. Okay, and you can hear me again, so that means my headphone's working. So let's see. Figure out how I can close out of that one. Whoops.
We try the escape button.
Sorry about that, guys. So there we go. Can you still see my screen?
No, I don't
Okay.
see anything.
Let's try that again. How about now?
Yes, there it is.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to pick up at the point of where an observation was posted. So this is how our data rolls into the platform and how we curate it and then make it available to publish it onto the platform. So I'm gonna pick what observation that I put into the system and you can see this is sort of in our editorial view, how we see it before it gets published. But the information that's in there, we have the date, it was August 10th. The topic is fireweed has multiple stalks. We put in the scientific name of the species And then this is where we were talking about the categories, and you can sort by categories. So it's categorized as plants or kelp, and unusual range or sighting. It gives you the location, Anchorage, the lat long. You can click here and see if there's any other posts nearby. And then it also includes this community page because again, we're talking about the localness of this. And you have nearby posts and you have the members. So you have a variety of information there. This is my page. I can, as a member, every member has their own Leo profile page. Let's see if this pops open for me. You can contact me by like a third person, kind of Craigslist way, by sending a message. So we don't reveal anyone's personal information, but this is my public page that you're looking at. So it shows my associations. It shows my contributions that are in the system. It also will show, if you go far enough down there, it shows all the people that I've collaborated with. And you can look on your own map and see, you know, where these contributions came from, where your posts or observations occurred. So, and then it has kind of a neat way to drill in here. But the point is that this is one way that we're hoping to acknowledge local knowledge. We're also acknowledging our members. We're helping them to create their own content and network with people that they work with. And we're giving them a way to track what they're putting into the system. So, so that's just the author part of it. Another thing that we've built into the system is a way you can add it to your own map. So if you're doing a collection of content from Leo about fireweed, you can go in here and you can add it to an existing map that you've made, or you can add it to a new map. You can also search through the platform and add news articles about fireweed or whatever. And you can add your own content from your own data as well. And you can make that either private or publicly available through Leo. So we want to give people also a tool so they can do their own mapping science and their own analysis and their own collections. And that's all built into the system. But anyway, so we have this draft post. It has the observation that was provided, and it also has a consult that was provided. Oh, this is actually a comment from one of our editors talking about this phenomena, and what the phenomena is, so you can see, is here in Anchorage, but also we have other posts that people have provided in Fairbanks. We're seeing a lot of this branching of fireweed. And if you know fireweed, it's not supposed to look like that. It's supposed to be a straight stalk. In fact, fireweed is kind of the botanical calendar for Alaska. So it's not unheard of that this happens. I guess the question we have is there more of this happening this season, and why? Where did that go? So anyways, so here are these see also. Here is a similar post that came July 10th from Esther. And here's one from Kenai in 2019. We also add the wiki page link for the species. And that's kind of the whole suite of information that will go on individual posts. We review that, and then when it's ready, you can go ahead and this is our editing platform. We can add content on here. There's a lot of things we can do sort of as editors behind the curtain to make sure these are ready. And then we can go ahead and publish it. When we publish it, it'll send a notification to the person who posted the observation. It'll also send a notification to our editing team or followers, people that are following that topic of plants. And we can send a link also to social media.
Hey,
So
Mike, I wanted to do a time check.
Yep,
We
okay.
have another presenter as well, but you know, one of my questions to you earlier was how do we come up with this title? Usually they're very compelling, but I think we'll table that, and anybody else who has questions, we should put those in the chat, and we'll revisit that if we have time at the end. But thank you very
Jonathan.
much, Mike.
Thank you for reining in my time there. Sorry, I tend to just lose track, but
me
I
too.
enjoyed the opportunity to present.
I was fascinated to see the platform. So thanks again. And Jill Prewitt from AOOS, we asked Jill to present on her work with the Bering Sea portal, and she'll have much more to say about that. Thank you, Jill.
Hi, thanks Jonathan for inviting me, and thanks for that talk on the Leo network too. I've been a member for a while, but it's always nice to see a user who's really familiar with the program use it. I learn something new every time. So I'm going to try and share my screen now. Are you able to see my screen right now?
I see a screen. It's just in presenter mode, or it's not being presented yet. So it's small.
Okay, I thought I got through this before, but
I think you just have to go on presenter mode. Yeah.
okay. So
Yeah.
you see this now? Okay, great. So I am with the Alaska Ocean Observing System. I just started in April working on the Bering Region Ocean Data Sharing Initiative. But for those of you who might not be familiar with AOOS, just a little quick overview. We're part of the National Integrated Ocean Observing System. There's 11 regions across the US. And even though that is a program of NOAA, each of the regional systems are non-federal, non-regulatory, and policy neutral. And we're also non-research. Our mission is to increase the observing and forecasting capacity in Alaska. So we do have a hand in supporting some of the observation collections, but we're not directing the research that's getting done in Alaska. So we are stakeholder driven and science-based. And basically, as we're doing our work, we ask three main questions. Do we have the observations that are needed? What do people need to make their decisions? And how can we provide that information and observations that are needed back to the people who need them? So this just represents that flow chart of how we do this. First, we have the stakeholder concerns. We're talking to various stakeholders, figuring out what types of information they need and how to present that information as well, so the products that are needed. Then we'll go out and see if the observations are already being collected or if we need to collect new observations, provide data management, integration, and analysis, and hopefully meet the goals that the stakeholders identified at the beginning. So the circle in the bottom, the middle of that circle represents the four major themes of information and observations that we deal with. And these are marine operations, coastal hazards and inundation, water quality, and ecosystems, fisheries, and climate trends. And the outside of the circle represents all of the various stakeholders that we're getting input from and responsive to. And as you can see, that pretty much means anybody who either lives in the coastal Alaska environment or works in the marine environment in Alaska. So anybody in the coastal and ocean realm. So this slide is very busy, which violates a lot of PowerPoint rules, but that's somewhat intentional just to show you what all we have a hand in. So AOOS, we're supporting the observing functions to meet those stakeholder needs. And those involve the maritime operations, So we're involved in supporting weather stations, wave buoys, mapping of surface currents, and any observations that are needed for safety, in particular, of maritime operations. Coastal hazards and inundation, we support putting out water level gauges and mapping of coastal bathymetry, so we have more information about inundation events and how coastal communities can be aware of how that's going to affect their communities. Ecosystems, fishery and climate, we support ecosystem moorings, collection of fish, bird, marine mammal observations, sea ice, and many others. And for water quality, we support ocean acidification monitoring at the Alutiiq Pride Shellfish Hatchery in Seward, and also the Sitka Tribes Lab in Sitka. We have monitoring equipment on the coastal ferry, the Columbia, that monitors throughout its route, and community sampling. So people out in the communities collecting water samples and sending those back to the hatchery and the labs to get analyzed. And we also support the Ocean Acidification Network, which brings together ocean acidification researchers and also interested parties, such as shellfish growers, whoever might be interested in that information, to coordinate some of the work. And similar with the harmful algal blooms, supporting some sampling and the harmful algal bloom network. And we take all of these observations and information and hopefully provide data and information products back to the users in a way that's useful to them. So we like to say we observe once and use that observation many times. So apply it to as many different uses as possible. So helping people access, find the data, visualize it, and specialized tools for users as well. So my project is the Bering Region Ocean Data Sharing Initiative, and I just started with AOOS in April. So this is a fairly new project, and it was funded by a data sharing initiative from the White House. So each of the AOOS regions got funding to help with data sharing projects. And because of the rapid ecosystem changes that are being seen in the Bering Sea, the AOOS board decided to focus this funding on the Bering Sea and Strait and the adjacent regions for at least the next 2 years. So as you can see on the map on the right side, our definition of this region is very broad. It's very large, from the Aleutians through the southern Chukchi Sea, and including the Russian side of the region as well. So it's a really broad area, but we can do sub-projects within this overall project that might drill down to a smaller, smaller region, I guess. So overall, the goals are to increase the regional data sharing among the private, state, community, and federal partners, facilitate the stakeholders' response to these rapid ecosystem changes, support agency management and the community's decision-making, and enhance economic opportunities in the area as well. So as I mentioned, we just started in April. What we've done first, as a first step, is take what was already in the AOOS system, which consists of over 2,000 data sets, and tag the ones that are specifically related just to this Bering Sea area and put them into its individual data portal so that people can look at the data, not worried about all the other observations in Alaska as well. So there's 2 ways to use the portal. You can explore it through an interactive map, which I'll talk about a little bit more in the next coming slides, but you can also search the catalog, and a lot of the data sets are tagged with various information, and we're working on improving that tagging and searching ability so people can actually find the data when they really need it. And one of the things, as I said, is that this is just the data that was already in the AOOS system right now, but we're talking with the various groups, agencies, and others to see if they have data sets that they also want to put into this portal. And that could be state agency that doesn't necessarily have their data accessible to the public right now. We could get it into our data management system and they could be able to visualize it alongside other data from other agencies. Or if it's an agency who already has their data available publicly, but they would like the users to have the ability to visualize it alongside other agency data. So if it's NOAA data that's already out there, but they know that people want to see NOAA and ADF&G data side by side, if we get them both into the portal, then that's more possible. So a little bit about the interactive map, and I should have done what Mike did and just share my screen as I played around with it. But if you go to the website, you'll be able to play around with this a little bit more. You can pull up the map and click on the different layers that you want to have displayed on there. And I just showed two examples right here. We have sea ice concentration, which is a direct data stream from the National Snow and Ice Data Center, and that's updated daily. So you can see where the sea ice is at any point in the year. And then I also have the AOOS real-time sensors displayed on here. And those are many different variables: weather, wind, waves, currents, and other things like that. And each of these hexagons is a station that may have multiple different sensors. And the colored ones mean that data has been reported back to the system within the last 24 hours. So there's a help function up at the top. You can click on that and there's an interactive guide to help you through some of the features of the data portal. And you can also search in that in the Find Data catalog alongside the map too, and directly add it to the map while you're looking at it. And there's also a red feedback button up at the top, and you can click on that if you feel like a station sensor isn't working properly, or you're not able to make the portal do what you think it should be able to do. You can send us that feedback and we'll get back to you whether we've been able to fix it or help guide you through how to use some of these features. So I wanted to show an example of a data tool that we're working on. It's an emergency or spill response type tool. And if you're familiar with a previous project that we worked on, the Cook Inlet Response Tool, or the National Emergency Response Management Application, IRMA, it's similar to this, but we're working with WWF, Arctic, and Russia programs. And if anybody else wants to partner in this project as well, would be very happy to have you aboard. But the point of this tool is to provide the data and information that's needed for responders in an emergency or an oil spill. And one of the key things about this product, this tool, is it's going to be transboundary. So working with the WWF Russia program, we're working on getting some of those data layers from the Russian side of the Bering and Chukchi Sea, which is a huge data gap for us in Alaska. We hear really often that we want to know what's going on the other side. So this is one way that we can try and get some of that information that we know is there, but it might right now only be in Russian and not in a way that the US emergency responders or communities can use that data. So getting that into the tool will be key. And so this information will include spatial data layers such as species distributions, infrastructure that's available in the area. So if different oil spill response tools have been put or placed in various communities, we can put where those have been located so that emergency responders know where the nearest equipment is located. And we'll also have real-time observations. So in the midst of the response, people can look at what the wind, weather, and wave patterns are, looking also at forecasts for those things and ocean circulation and currents to see how that might affect their response. And we also have the shore zone video and imagery, which some of you might be familiar with as well. So a little bit more detail here. I just put up some of the layers that we already have in the system that can go towards emergency response. So imagine if an event happened somewhere near Nome, an emergency responder would be able to click on the various layers and see, okay, are there Pacific walrus haulouts nearby that we need to worry about? What does the coastline actually look like in that area if they're not from the area, or if you're trying to communicate with someone who isn't from the area, you can pull this up and show them, this is a sandy beach here, or in a different area, you might have a very steep cliff, which might affect how you respond to that event. And then of course, also the real-time sensors, and I've clicked here the wind speed and direction, so the responders would have that information for the response as well. So other tools that we have planned include vessel traffic, and I put some examples here of vessel density and overlaid with the cetacean biologically important areas. And that could be useful for resource managers, planners, and also communities. And so we'd like to also work with the harmful algal bloom and ocean acidification networks to look at how to present that data and information in a way that is useful for the communities, scientifically accurate, but also for, in particular, harmful algal blooms, because that's a sensitive public health issue. We need to work with the public health agencies to make sure that that's presented in an accurate way as well. And we're always looking for ideas. So if you have an idea of a tool that you think we should be able to put together, then just let us know. And I know we're running out of time, so I'll just leave this, and I think the slides are already posted on the site so people can look at some of the other things that we're doing. And with that, the main thing is I just want people to know that this project is going on, but we're here to work on what our various stakeholders need. So if you have an idea, you want more info, you want to talk to me directly about what the project is and how you can be involved, just send me an email, go to the webpage and play around with the data portal, and yeah, keep in touch. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. That was a very concise and informative presentation, and we're happy that you got that funding. Molly mentioned it a few months ago, maybe back in April, so I'm glad we were able to have you present at this meeting.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thanks. I do have one more piece of business. I want to give the opportunity for Bill Fitzhugh to plug his idea for the data library, or the Arctic Digital Library. But before we do that, are there any thoughts? I didn't see anything in the chat. Maybe there's one from Aaron McLean. Any closing thoughts on the two presentations, or quick questions? We can always take these offline or follow up later. So I wanted to just introduce Bill Fitzhugh. He's at the Smithsonian here in DC as the director of the anthropology department. And he has this great new idea that I just wanted him the opportunity to send a teaser, and it might be something that we take up in a future meeting if there's enough interest. So.
Thanks very much, Jonathan. Thanks for these earlier presentations, full of data and actually ongoing, and you know, tremendous tools for people to use. What we've been working on is a project that's not in the, it's in the development stage, but we wanted to let a few people know what was happening. It's called Polar Explorer, the Arctic Digital Library, and it's basically a network, to create a network of information that would become accessible to wide, variety of users, from from scholars to administrators to Native people and general public. And it looks back in time. It's not a contemporary tool the way we've just heard these great programs are, but it would be to open up a lot of the archival and museum and literary and other kinds of information dealing with the wide Arctic and also potentially the Antarctic regions as well. It's kind of modeled on the Biodiversity Heritage Library, which has been kicked off over the last 5 or 10 years, primarily by Harvard. The Smithsonian Library now is playing a role in it as well. And that inventories all this biological information on a worldwide basis, providing lots of information on the literature, on the species, distributions, science data, publications, and so forth. And there are programs somewhat like this that have been launched in the geological sciences as well. But the problem we face in the Arctic region is this is such a multidisciplinary environment where, say, explorers have written about all sorts of different things as they've been doing their work in the north, and scientists are increasingly use lots of different kinds of disciplines in their work as well. A lot of this data is locked up in libraries, archives, museums, different places that are scattered all around the north. And generally, a lot of this material has never been digitized. So part of the project is to encourage these institutions to digitize their collections and begin to make them available. And then, of course, the question is networking. How do you take social sciences, history, archaeology, anthropology, literature, art, and other fields that are not generally included in these kinds of larger networking operations that are becoming available? How do you make those materials available? What kind of search tool would be possible to extract this kind of information from different institutional collections and so forth? A couple of years ago, 2 and 3, 4 years ago, there were a couple of workshops that the National Science Foundation Polar Programs Office funded to explore an initial version of this. And they had a meeting at the Smithsonian and one up in the Boston area. Very successful. They were attended by 30 and 40 different institutions. A number of federal agencies were also present. Everybody seems to be very encouraging about the opportunities that this concept presents. And so we've taken that and with a couple of people I've been working with. One is David Nordlander, who's an independent researcher and a Russian historian who's worked a lot with the Library of Congress, and Nana Nesbitt, who's had a lot to do with the environment, a couple of these big BHL programs and the Encyclopedia of Life program at the Smithsonian. So she's very familiar with sort of managing these kinds of operations. So we put together a kind of a team. David is the one who knows most about this concept and has worked with people to figure out how the search tools would work and so forth. And we've teamed up with some partners, largely Dartmouth College, because of the Stephenson archives, which are so voluminous, and we want to focus a trial project, we call it a pilot project, using Stephenson, Dartmouth collections, some of the International Polar Year collections from the Smithsonian, and then some from Harvard's archives as well. And we're toying now with putting these collections together, extracting the information, and trying the search engines and so forth. We don't have a host for this exactly right now. Smithsonian's been very busy recently with the BHL incorporating that into their library system. But we're exploring with Dartmouth College whether we may be able to team up with them as a host for the project. And of course, we'd love to have other agencies interested in it. I think that the social science community and the broader disciplines in that area might find this a very useful tool, because it tends to be a forgotten area, much more difficult to extract information than, say, just one discipline, because there's so many involved. But on the other hand, it would be a tremendous asset for people in the North, communities and Native groups and indigenous peoples to be able to access, some of the earliest photographs taken from their region, the earliest reporting by explorers, the whalers and so forth. So there's a vast stream of data, that realm of data that could be put together and be of interest to a very wide sector of people. So in a nutshell, that's what we're thinking about. We'd love to
Thanks, Bill. Yeah,
explore this further.
This is just the beginning of that discussion. And since we're over time, I just want to thank you all for coming, and we'll pick it up in the future, in a future meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you all.